Welcome to the tutorial for the SR2 strain measurement system. This tutorial video will give you, the user, a basic understanding of how the SR2 handheld reader and interface can be used to measure strain passively and actively. Prior to starting the program, be sure to plug the SR2 handheld reader into one of your computer's USB ports and be sure that all the necessary drivers are installed in your PC. The program will automatically shut down if the reader is not connected. To begin collecting strain data utilizing the SR2 software interface, simply double-click on the program icon located on the desktop. Initially, you will be prompted to either accept or decline the Direct Measurements End User License Agreement. You must accept the terms and conditions of this agreement in order to use SR2. Once you have accepted the terms and conditions of the license agreement, the main interface will load and you will be prompted to select a job folder location. I'm going to create a new job folder called Demo. This location will contain all of the gauge data for a specific job, meaning that it can contain data for multiple gauges. I will now place the SR2 handheld reader over our demo gauge. In order to align the gauge underneath the reader, utilize the blue indicator circle to tell which direction to move the handheld reader to align it in both the X and Y direction and rotationally. Once you have it aligned, you can see here in the current source that we have a green streamer. This indicates that the gauge is reading correctly. Looking at the SR2 interface, we can see several key features. The SR2 control panel harbors the controls and settings within the program, while the background shows the current source seen here in the control panel. The bottom of the control panel has 5 tabs, all containing different settings. The Data Source tab contains the baseline image and current source feed from the handheld reader. Baseline images can either be created from the source feed or loaded from previous sessions. I will go over how to create a baseline and make a measurement in a moment. The Temperature Compensation tab allows the user to input both the baseline surface temperature and current temperature, as well as some material properties to compensate for thermal expansion and contraction. The Data Logging tab allows the user to control whether or not they would like to make a single point active measurement or a continuous measurement like a conventional strain gauge. You may also control the length of the current log for continuous log data and the maximum number of log entries allowed within your current log file. A log file is a comma-separated value text file from which all the data captured during a measurement will be stored. You must select a location for a log file prior to making a measurement. Simply click on Select Log File in order to designate a location for the log file to be saved. Notice because the sensor is located above an identifiable gauge, the log file is defaulted to a folder with the same name as the current gauge ID number. Gauge information will tell you about the current gauge you are reading, like its ID number and some other symbol characteristics. The Settings tab allows the user to control every aspect of the program's operation. You can change your job folder here, change the view settings in order to view the entire gauge or manually adjust it. Under More Settings, changing things like the button settings, material properties, log file settings, default folder locations for the entire program, alignment sensitivity for the handheld reader, and job folder assignment settings are all available to the user. Please consult the SR2 operating manual on our website for specific details on all of these settings and how to use them. Under Advanced Settings, you can either automatically or manually set the contrast for the imager to better the contrast of the image. The better the contrast between black and white pixels, the more accurate the strain measurement will be. If you cannot get a gauge to read because of contrast, simply press the Auto button to automatically adjust the settings. We will just go back to the Data Source tab as we will be using it for the demo following. Above the tab is the active strain output and the start, stop, and clear controls for the strain measurement process. For the demo, you can see here the square gauge is located directly adjacent to a circular notch. As the notches spread apart, we will be able to see the strain on the boundary, away from the boundary, and transverse to it. As we already have the reader correctly positioned over the strain gauge, to begin measuring strain, simply click on Create Baseline. You can choose to save this baseline now or after the fact. Once the baseline has been recorded, pressing the Start button will begin the strain measurement process. This data is streaming. If you have selected the Continuous Data option under the Data Logging tab, continuous strain data will be collected. However, if you have single point selected, you must press the Enter key in order to record the single data point. That sound indicates that a data point has been logged. Now I will spread the notch adjacent to the gauge in order to show the sensitivity of the gauge and its ability to return to a restful state once unloaded. Notice the strain data is streaming in the top section of the control panel. The user has the ability to change whether or not they are viewing normal and shear, principal, or individual element strains of the gauge. I am collecting 2 data points at the maximum load and 2 at the zero load once unloaded. Once the data has been collected, it can be processed using SR2 post-processor, which will be discussed in another tutorial video. Thank you for viewing this tutorial video displaying the functions and capabilities of the SR2 strain measurement system. Be sure to check out our other tutorial videos on our website, www.directmeasure.com.